Hey everyone, I'm Matt Lansadell. Welcome to the Inspired to be Authentic YouTube channel where we talk about everything authenticity. My content is geared towards sensitives, empaths, and gay men, but it will serve all people looking to develop a stronger relationship to their authentic self. Today we are going to be talking about what makes someone authentic, the 7 qualities of authentic people. So this video is for you if you experience shame about who you authentically are. You wear masks and hide aspects of who you authentically are. You struggle with people pleasing, boundaries, or codependency. What you will get from this video. So I'm going to be talking about my own personal definition of authenticity and what it means to me. The 4 stages of authenticity development. 7 qualities of authentic people. And why we do authenticity work. What's the point of doing authenticity work and how can it benefit you? So before we begin, please subscribe if you haven't already. You can do that by clicking the subscribe icon, and the little bell notification will let you know when I release new content each week. You can also follow me on Instagram at Inspired to be Authentic, where I release daily content that you cannot find here on my YouTube channel. It is all stuff related to sensitives, empaths, and men in general. One of my missions on that page is to really help men, gay or straight, develop a stronger connection to their sensitive side, so we can have more empathy and compassion in this world. All right, let's jump right on in onto today's topic. I want to preface that this is going to be a longer video because I have a lot to share. Obviously, this is my brand. Today's video is all about my brand. Authenticity work, moving through shame, these sorts of things. And I thought about creating 2 separate videos and having them to be a little bit more bite-sized pieces. But I kind of thought, I'm like, you know what? Whenever I'm looking for information on people's channels and I have to sort through 5 different videos to find the content, it's annoying and it's laborious. So I figured, you know what? If it's a longer video, you can break it up yourself by watching it in smaller pieces, and then at least if you want to come back and refer to the video, it will all be in one place. It will be the video on this channel about authenticity, so everything will be here. All right. Okay, let's begin. So authenticity, it's a big buzzword right now. I've been doing authenticity work for many years, and just in the last few years, it's become really just to use the word authenticity or authentic is really, I think it's overused, and I want to really shine some light on what the true meaning of authenticity is and authenticity work and how it can benefit you. So my definition of authenticity is being in alignment, to what is real and genuine to you. Okay, whatever that is. This is why I don't teach authenticity. I inspire authenticity, because it's almost an oxymoron to say I teach people authenticity, because how do I know what is authentic to them, right? So it's very unique to the individual what is authentic to you, and the purpose of this channel is to inspire that in you, whatever that is in you that you want to shine your beautiful light into the world. It's about really inspiring you to be able to do that. Okay, and in some cases it's getting clear on what is true and genuine to me, but that's a little bit more of an exploration of self-concept, which I will explore in this video as well. So yeah, authentic people deliberately choose to live from that place of alignment to their meaning and purpose. Okay, they don't allow others to determine their choices or influence their sense of self. This is a really big part of authenticity work, because when we have a strongly developed sense of self, we're less likely to engage in the things that destroy our authenticity, which will also be talked about later in this video. So when we share our authentic self with others, so they can experience who we are, based on, well, and this is based off of the perceptions that we have of who we are. This is where we start to bleed into this concept around self-concept, right? Who are we? how do we fit into this world? How do we perceive ourselves? And I think a lot of times these go through filters of beliefs that we have about who we are. And I think sometimes we get caught in these traps of thinking that we can only be so much because we don't believe in ourselves, or we've never been taught how to have self-worth or self-confidence or self-esteem. So they impact our authenticity and how we share that authenticity with others. So this really is this work is, like I said, it's just as much about understanding ourselves and what it is that we like how it is that we define ourselves, and how it is that we see others defining who we are, right? Because at the end of the day, we're always teaching people who we are, right? We're always showing them who we are. And when we're not sure of who we are and we're not confident in who we are, other people will take the lead, or other people will take our lead on how they view us, right? So this is why authenticity work is so powerful, because when we get into the energy of really loving who we are and caring about who we are, other people take that lead. And then we start to experience other people differently as they start to experience us differently in who we are. So when it comes to the development of the authentic self, I've identified 4 stages that we go through as humans on this stage of, or sorry, on the stages of development towards developing our authentic self. And the first one is we discover our authenticity. Okay, this stage requires a lot of trial and error. It requires a lot of mask wearing and taking off masks that no longer serve us. Because when we're behind these masks, we are very worried about judgment and rejection and criticism. Right? I would say those are the 3 top fears for human beings. So when we're in this discovery stage, we really are kind of peeking out from behind masks. We're playing with different self-concepts and seeing what's going to be approved by others and what's not. And it's almost like this stage where we get fatigued. We get fatigued of hiding who we are and not being able to be authentic and real to ourselves. And we start to see ourselves in this really almost like experimental stage, and we start to give ourselves a little bit more space to be who we know we're becoming, but we're not quite there yet. And I think this is a really beautiful stage to be in, because this is where we start to lead with curiosity and less judgment, right, towards ourselves. So oftentimes when we're trying to discover who we come up against shadow aspects of who we are, the parts of us that we've split from, right, the things that hide our authenticity, the reason why we feel we need to wear masks in the first place. And in this stage, it's when we put down our the inner inquiry flashlight going inside of ourselves of judgment, and we start to replace it with curiosity. So this is shadow work in this stage. It's very much involved in this stage, shadow work. So for those of you who don't understand what shadow work is, I created a whole video and a video series on it, and the video is called Everything You Need to Know, or Everything You Must Know About Shadow Work. I highly recommend watching that if you are wanting to move out, from discovery into the next stage. It's really important. I also have a video series on here called Embody Your Truth. It's in the playlist where you can go and go through seven teachings that I have of learning how to embody your truth. Both of those resources will be really good in pushing you from discovery, okay, into the next stage, which is ownership, right? And when we own who we are in this second stage, it involves a lot of allowance and a lot of acceptance. Okay, I look at self-ownership as kind of like the cream of the crop when it comes to self-acceptance, right? Because the word acceptance it's kind of like, yeah, sure, I don't like that about myself, but I'll let it in anyway, right? Acceptance. Whereas self-ownership is, yeah, like I don't like that aspect of myself. I integrated it, made it something that I accept, and now I'm actually owning it because I now don't carry shame around it. I love this part of me because it is a part of me, right? So this is, again, it's the integration of the shadows where we start to lead with this really ownership energy, and we develop a lot more confidence because we feel safe showing up in these vulnerable aspects of our true nature. Okay, so in this stage, we lead with honesty and courage rather than people pleasing, right? Because when we're people pleasing, we are in the pre-stages of ownership, right? We don't own who we are. We don't feel confident in who we are. So we change ourselves to be what other people want us to be. That's what people pleasing is, right? So we let go of that in this stage. There is no more people pleasing. This is where we lead with the honesty and the transparency and the authenticity of who we really are, and we start to let go of being concerned about other people's opinions of us. Okay. The third stage is we live our authenticity. Okay, this is a really beautiful stage because, you know, when we, in the first two stages, we've done a lot of the work. We've gone inside, we've worked with a therapist or a coach, and, you know, we've really done the deep work to kind of clear the shadows, or I shouldn't say clear the shadows. We integrate the shadows. We don't clear them. They're still a part of who we are. We just change the perception we have of them. So, and then we get to live. We get to start to invite this real playful and zestful energy back into our lives, which is that of our inner child, right? When we have shame and trauma and we don't love who we are and we're not living authentically, we're literally repressing our inner child. We're not letting our inner child out, because our inner child usually contains all the things that we develop shadows around, right? It was the unmet needs, it was the things that happened to us when we were younger. Those all get pushed away, and our inner child gets pushed away with it. All right. So when we move into this stage of living, we lead with worthiness to take our place in this world with a real great conviction, and we own and we bring our inner child back, and we're more playful, we're more fun, and we allow our shortcomings and our greatest strengths to be on the table and to be lived, right? We're no longer hiding, and that's the biggest part of living our authenticity, is we're no longer hiding, and then that brings us to stage 4. So when we're living our authenticity, we enter the fourth stage, which I think is probably the most actualized stage, which is sharing our authenticity. Because when we are in shame and we're not being authentic, the biggest fear we have is relational. It's social, right? That's why we have social anxiety as creatures, as human beings, because we don't want to share who we really are because we're afraid of being judged, right? So this is the stage where we get to let go of all of that. The prior 3 stages are helping us let go and shed all the things that are holding us back, and then we enter stage 4, where we get to bring this forward in connection. So one of the most primary motivators in this stage is going to be connection, because it just feels so yummy to be in connection with other people after hiding for so many years, right? The masks come off, other people's masks come off, and we learn the true essence of vulnerability, and we get to be and revel in this beautiful connection. So I say in this stage, we lead with a burning desire in our heart for authentic connection, because it feels so yummy. It feels so good to be in that place where you're feeling seen, you're feeling heard, you're feeling understood for being exactly who you are, right? And I think in some of the previous stages, being misunderstood and growing up being misunderstood, that's why the inner child gets pushed away, right? Because we feel like no one's going to understand us, so we have to hide who we are. This stage is the opposite of that. We throw a party, we want to be seen, we want to be visible, we want to be connected to, and this is why this is so important to be in this stage and have this because this is the reinforcement stage. This is where we get reinforced for who we are, and it just feels really beautiful. A side note here too is going to be that, yes, just because you're bringing your authentic self forward doesn't mean everybody's going to welcome it wholeheartedly. On my journey towards authenticity, I actually came up against a lot of resistance from people, because other people, when you start integrating your shadows, it means you start feeling safer to share your shadows with the world, and your shadows are likely going to trigger other people's shadows. So that can bring up some conflict, it can bring up some disapproval, some judgment, these things, and that's part of this journey. Okay, it doesn't just become all, rainbows and butterflies. It's about moving through the discomfort of people not liking you, not accepting you, and saying, you know what, that's okay, because I'm going to choose to like me more than my desire to have you like me. Right. And I always say, it's not about getting to a place where we say, I don't care what people think about me, because that's impossible as human beings. Okay. It truly is. Even the most authentic people are still going to have a little modicum of care about what other people think about them, because they are likely rooted in empathy and compassion. Right. And when we aren't rooted in empathy and compassion, we're likely psychopathic or sociopathic. Right. And then we don't care what people think about us because we are actually rooted in dark energy. But when we're rooted in love, we care what people think about us. But the asterisk here is that we care more about what we think about ourselves than what other people think about us, right? So my mantra in this work is, other people's opinions of me is none of my business. I know people will have opinions of me, but it truly is none of my business, right? And I don't make it my business. I don't read mean comments. I don't give my energy towards those things that try and destroy my authenticity. My primary motivation is to make sure that I'm living my authenticity, and I'm doing it from a place of love within myself and a desire to be a better person, and not worrying about what other people think about me. Okay. So these 5 stages, another side note, these 4 stages are not linear. We don't really move through them like that, and it's just a perfect progression. We might move back into discovery after we come into the next stage of ownership, right? We might own a little part of ourself, and then there might be another part of ourself that needs to be discovered. So we can sometimes bounce around, and our authenticity is subject to change. Okay. So as we learn about ourselves and more of ourselves peel back, it's like an onion. We're constantly peeling back, and we might get to a piece of ourselves that, we're like, wow, I did not know that about myself. And then we uncover another part of ourselves because that piece unpeeled this piece, right? And it's just this, that's how complex human beings are, because we're constantly meeting different versions of ourselves, and that's normal, natural, and amazing. This is the beautiful thing about life and about being a human being, is we're constantly peeling back and learning about ourselves. So definitely understand that you will likely go through these 4 stages many times in your life as you learn more about yourself and what makes you tick. All right. Okay, so those are the 4 stages. Now I want to move into the 7 qualities. Okay. I love these 7 qualities. I came up with them. It was a couple months ago, and I started to really grapple with them. And I'm working through these still too. Okay. Like, yes, I teach authenticity, but I don't teach because I'm an expert or I've perfected it. I teach because I'm authentic about it, right? I'm still working through some of these, and I'll speak about it personally as I teach you guys them, so you'll understand them. So the first quality of authentic people is congruence. Okay, so congruency is all about the internal and the external matching to a certain degree, right? We're not always going to share every little thing that's happening internally for us, because sometimes there's some crazy things happening up here. We all have weird thoughts, and if we share them too authentically, it can be a little bit much, right? So it's like about how much can I get, can I close the gap in between my internal and my external world with it still being socially appropriate, right? I think that's a big part of it here. So authentic people have nothing to hide, right? So they choose to show up exactly as they are without censoring aspects of themselves. And this is the beauty of congruence, right? When we start to clear our shadows and we do this deep shadow work, we start to have this burning desire inside of us to share all that's happening inside, and we want people to see us for our most authentic selves, and this congruency is that motivator, right? Because we're tired of having that gap between who we are and who we want to be perceived as being such a large gap, because that's when masks come in, right? We have to try and people please and change who we are because we want to be perceived this way, but we're actually this way, right? That dissonance between those two things is really, it's draining, it's exhausting for people. And when we start working with congruence, we close that gap and we start to make peace with the fact that maybe we don't need to wear masks. Maybe I can just be who I am, and people will love me and accept me for that person. The next one is the area that I'm really working with right now, which is self-possession. Okay, people who are authentic have a strong self-possessive trait. So it means that they prioritize their opinion of themselves over other people's opinions of them, right? As I was saying earlier. So someone who is self-possessed chooses the right direction for them, regardless of the direction of the herd. They are not easily swayed into doing things that are not in alignment to their highest self. Okay? Recovering people pleaser here. So this is where my lack of self-possession came from, is I learned in early on in my life to sacrifice my sense of self and my needs for other people, right? So I learned very much to become a manipulator and a pleaser of others so then I could feel okay. It was my way of self-soothing. Instead of doing the inside job, I did it outside myself. I tried to micromanage everything around me to feel safe, when instead self-possession is about managing your inner world, right? Managing this desire to have people see you a certain way. Where is that coming from within? What unmet need happened as a child for you that you feel the need to manage everything around you? That's when you start tending to this, okay? So this is why I'm still working in this space of self-possession, because I'm working through a lot of deep childhood trauma and shame that I had around being my own sense of self. And we can only really be self-possessive when we have a strong sense of self, right? So as I'm developing a stronger sense of self, which is really truly prioritizing my own needs, that's when I start to become more self-possessive. Okay, so this is a really beautiful one, and I would say for me it's probably the last one. Most of these other ones I'm going to be teaching you guys, I feel like I've really integrated them, but this last one I'm really still working on, and I don't know if it would be the same on everybody's journey, but for me it's definitely kind of been the most challenging one. So okay, the third one is aligned. Authentic people are aligned, okay? They're aligned to their meaning and their purpose, and they choose in each moment to live from this truth. So meaning and purpose is a really important thing for authentic people, because they are aligned to exactly what it is that they're called to do in this life. And I think a lot of times people are very ego motivated, right? Like, I want to be a doctor or a lawyer or any of these high profile, high status, high power positions, but really is that their meaning and purpose, or are they doing it because their parents or society said for them to do it, right? So when we're really truly genuinely aligned to our meaning and purpose, we're aligned to our soul's purpose, right? Not our ego's purpose. And that's why alignment is key, because it's like, I have a desire to show up in this life and work at whatever. It could be I want to work at a library, right? But in my belief system when I was younger, working at a library meant low status. It meant that I wasn't going to, be respected by people. And we have these beliefs. There's a dissonance, right, between who we want to be and who we think we have to be. And that, again, that space, when we're aligned, it closes that gap and allows us to really, truly, genuinely connect to our heart center and say, what is it that I want in this life? What do I want out of this life, right? And I'm going to go for that. I'm not going to keep following these shoulds. I should do this, or my parents want me to do that, right? So authentic people are very aligned to their meaning and purpose, okay? Number 4, self-ownership. Okay, authentic people have done the work to accept, integrate, and own their shadows and shortcomings, right? Shadow work is essentially self-acceptance work. Again, watch that video and start your shadow work journey if you have yet to start it, or even start grappling with what shadows are. That video will be really powerful for you. And we move towards self ownership when we've done the shadow work. Then we've moved into the acceptance work, and then self ownership is about, sweet, awesome, I'm owning these things, right? So things for me that I really hid for most of my life is my sensitivity, being gay, being empathic, being all of these traits that I thought made me weird, right? Demisexual, being demisexual. I thought all these things made me weird, and because mainstream does not really understand these things, right? But then once I started to own them, right? When we own who we are, we attract what we need. That's my quote on the top of my of this YouTube channel, because that really is what this is all about, right? And then when you attract what or who you need, you start to feel like, wow, there's more people in this world that are like me, right? Because I was vulnerable, I took my mask off, I showed my authentic self, and guess what I got in return? Authentic connection. Okay, which is beautiful, which is why I do this work and why I'm teaching people to do this work. That's my number one motivator for doing this work, is because I want everyone to feel and taste the yumminess of authentic connection, because nothing beats it, right? Being masked and connecting with people sucks. You're not really genuinely being connected to. Your mask is being connected to. So when we can let go of our hangups and start to connect authentically, we really, really, truly get a taste of what connection and meaningful connection can actually be like. And in my opinion, life doesn't really start until we start living authentically, because then when we get that really awesome connection, it's a game changer. You won't ever go back once you've tasted it. So again, on self-ownership, I have a few notes here. They don't allow their shortcomings to throw them into a pit of despair or a shame spiral. Okay, and I think this happens to a lot of people who are traumatized and rooted in shame, which is a lot of us. We allow our shortcomings to throw us into a pit of despair, and that's why we don't share ourselves. That's why we hide, because we don't want people to see us in that pit of despair, right? And Brene Brown says, shame is healed when we tell our stories in safe places, right? And I think that's so true. Like, how can we heal shame if we're not willing to allow people into that pit of despair, right? And come with us and see what it's like to be in this place. And when we share that with somebody, something magical happens, right? And the shame melts away when we allow other people to witness us in the things that we think are undesirable, okay? The second part of this is authentic people also don't use their strengths and talents to create entitlement or grandiosity, right? That's the other side of the spectrum. That's the egoic structure trying to protect ourselves from feeling the pit of despair, right? So we're overcompensating from shame and we're going into entitlement and grandiosity, right? And this also can bleed into narcissism. So this area and this space over here is also not authentic, right? Because we are being something or trying to be something or be perceived as something that we're not, right? And this is a really important point to make. So again, as always, it's always about balance, right? It's about coming into harmony. We don't want to be in a pit of despair, but we also don't want to be in this grandiose energy. There's a really beautiful line that we walk in between, which is that of authenticity, okay? And then I just put another note here. They simply have made peace with the messiness of the human experience and aren't afraid to connect with their shadows. Being human is messy, okay? It's very messy. And when we are perfectionistic, or we grow up trying to hide who we are and trying to put our best foot forward and people please and this and that, and we're living in a culture that is reinforcing that, which is Instagram and Facebook, everybody's putting their best foot forward, and then we find ourselves comparing our behind the scenes with their highlight reel, and we feel like shit, right? It's the whole compare and despair. And what we're not, and this is why I own these things, this is why I bring forward, and I publicly heal, I publicly show my wounds, and because I want people to feel inspired to continue on their journey, right? The human journey is messy, and it's always going to be messy. So I just think it's really important that we all share that with one another, and we come into community to do our healing, because we're all going through very similar things. And on the authenticity journey, we're all going through similar things. We're moving through shame, we're moving through trauma, we're moving through these things that hold us back from our authenticity. So why not do it together, right? Because that's where the deepest healing is going to take place anyway. All right, number 5, emotionally intelligent. Authentic people know how to feel their feelings and possess self-awareness and empathy. All right, so emotional intelligence is everything on this journey, because our emotions are pointing us in the directions of our unmet needs. Our unmet needs are one of the most authentic aspects of who we are, because they they come up whether we like them or not, right? Our emotions come up whether we like them or not. We feel emotions whether we like them or not. Some of us choose to process them and some of us choose not to. And when we don't, we're not connecting to our authenticity. And when we do, we are. So people who are authentic very much have a strong emotional intelligence because they allow their emotions to show them and point them in the directions of their authentic nature, right? And that's the most important thing to note about this. Okay, our emotions are direct messengers and they're trying to communicate needs to us that, when honored, are pointing us in the direction of what is most genuine and real to us. Okay, so emotions are messengers, right? They're nothing to be afraid of. They pass their energy. So allow yourself to start feeling and allow yourself to start healing. And when we heal, we move towards authenticity, because what we're healing is shame and trauma. Okay, so emotional intelligence is a big part of this work. Number 6, authentic people are embodied. Okay, embodiment is again, this is probably self-possession, and then embodiment is probably number 2. I'm still working through this one. I think I always will be, because embodiment doesn't come naturally to me. I definitely am more heady. I spend a lot of time in my cerebral energy, which I love too, because I'm very creative, I'm very intellectual, but I do find that I need to really be diligent on spending time in my body. Okay, so embodiment is this notion that our mind, our body, and our spirit are in harmony. They're working together. Okay, whereas most of us spend time in our thoughts. When we're always in thoughts, and we're not in body, we're not connected to heart and spirit, right? Which are two really, really important things on the authenticity journey. Because when we are connected to our body, we are connected to the truth of who we are, right? Our soul originates in our body. Our intuition originates in our body. Our heart center, our chakral centers, everything about us is embodied. Okay, so the mental construct of who we are, the stories, the narrator in our mind, that's our ego. That's our ego structure. And there's nothing wrong with that part of us, but it isn't the truth of who we are, because that's constantly being put through filters of self-concept, of who we are. And on the authenticity journey, there's 2 aspects of authenticity. There's the notion of who I am and how I want to show up in this world, which is still ego structure. But then we also have this authenticity in us, which is spirit. It's our spirit, it's spiritual, it's soul, right? And that authenticity is very much about letting this inner playfulness, this inner essence of who you are shine forward, right? So one is essence, essential of authenticity, and one is psychological authenticity, right? And I think these 2 notions of authenticity are really important to note, because they are both equally valuable. But a lot of the work we need to do that is going to be to connect to our body. Okay, so some of my notes here: the most authentic aspect of our nature resides in the body. The body doesn't have an ego that tries to trick it into thinking it is something other than what it is. Okay, therefore, the more time spent in the body, the more connected to our authentic expression we become. Our ego structure is always trying to trick us in thinking that we are something else, or it's overcompensating, or it's minimizing somebody else's importance. It's always trying to make ourselves feel better, right? That's what it's doing. So most times it's tricking us from our authentic nature, and it's pushing us in the direction of what our ego needs in order to feel good about itself. Okay? So embodiment is going to be a big part of this work. Something I really love as far as practicing embodiment is yoga nidra. I do yoga nidra every day for 30 minutes, and it's very, very powerful for me to connect me back to my body and my felt sense of who I am, not my thought sense of who I am. All right, the last one, number 7, non-conformist. Okay, this is a big one, and a big one for me, and I think I'm really good at this one, because when everybody tends to go left, I go right. I've been that way my whole life. I've been a pioneer, a trailblazer for most of my life, and there's something in my soul that just won't let me go left when everybody goes left. It's just like something in me, like I've been born into this world to be that person that just blazes a new trail, and I've had to make peace with that, because I don't always want that, because it can sometimes draw conflict or shame or these sorts of things to me. But it's just part of my life calling and my life purpose, and I've just accepted that. So being a nonconformist essentially means we know how to say no to conformity without allowing shame or disappointment from others to control our beliefs or our behaviors. Okay, and I don't mean that I go left when everybody goes right because I'm being defiant. I mean, it's because usually I think about the world differently than the people that are going right. Right. So this is, again, you got to bring in alignment into this as well, because we're not just going to be a nonconformist just to be defiant. We're going to do it because it's not in alignment to us. So we're going to go the opposite direction of everybody. But being a nonconformist is about having the courage to go right when everybody goes left. Okay, so that's the important part of understanding this. So if it won't serve your highest purpose or isn't in alignment to your morals and values, the authentic person is okay to just walk away or go the opposite direction, right? So this is really important, and I think it's important too because we're so ingrained in this notion of tribe, right? Tribal, and the tribal mentality, and shame was how we kept people in line and how we still keep people in line. Fear and shame, right? When somebody is starting to go a little bit too left, we shame them and bring them a little bit more over, right? And this happens in politics, it happens in religion, it happens in all these debates that are happening right now around COVID and all this sort of stuff. And it's really interesting to watch this all play out, because the people that are most rooted in authenticity are the ones that are choosing to live regardless of what the pack is doing, right? And they're choosing to be authentic. And these people really inspire me, and I also want to be part of this inspiration movement for people to find their authentic self. Okay, that's a lot of stuff. So recap: we have congruence, self-possessive, aligned, self-ownership, emotionally intelligent, embodied, and nonconformist. Okay. So the last part of the video, I want to explore with you guys, why do authenticity work? Okay, what's the benefit of doing authenticity work? So for people that are following this channel, you're likely a highly sensitive person, an empath, or a gay man, okay, or even a straight man, because I think a lot of straight men that are moving towards embracing their sensitivity will also find this content really, really powerful. So a lot of times these people that come from minority groups, or they feel like they're a minority, they experience shame and trauma, right? And shame shows up in the sense of something is wrong with me. I'm defective, I'm different, so I have to hide who I am, okay? Authenticity work is the work that we do to stop hiding who we are, right? So authenticity work heals shame, right? The other aspect that we experience as minorities is trauma, right? And usually attachment trauma. So we've either experienced oppression, marginalization, rejection, criticism, judgment, any of these sorts of things, neglect, abandonment, and they all create attachment trauma, okay? And this impacts how we relate to other people. This impacts how we allow people in, how we allow people to see us in our authenticity, okay? So authenticity work is so potent to, and in conjunction with shame work and trauma work, right? So this is all the work that I do in my coaching. My coaching is all about shame and trauma healing, okay? And then once we do that work, and the shadow work is really essentially shame work, we find we have more capacity to allow in and share with others our authentic self, okay? So within this attachment trauma, we learn really, really quickly to people please, to not have boundaries, and to be codependent in our relationships. Okay, so authenticity really is the remedy to all three of those things: people pleasing, boundaries, and codependency. Because when we have a strongly developed authentic self, we have a strong sense of self, so we stop being codependent. We have a strong sense of self-worth, so we start setting boundaries. And we have a strong self-possessiveness, so we stop people-pleasing. Okay, so authenticity work really is the remedy to so many of these things that we struggle with as highly sensitive people, or empaths, or gay men, right? Authenticity work is also going to be important to learning how to feel your feelings, all right? Again, embodiment and emotional intelligence are key aspects to this journey, and a lot of the work I do in my private coaching is going to be around helping people feel, right? Empathic healing. That's what I do in my sessions. I help people process their emotions and connect back to their emotional body so they can get pointed in the direction of their authenticity, which emotions are constantly doing that for us. And if we're not feeling, we're not healing, and we're not coming into alignment to authenticity. Authenticity works helps you love yourself more. Right? Who doesn't want to love themselves more? Who doesn't want to feel more confident? Who doesn't want to feel okay to be quirky and weird, right? Which we all are, by the way. We're all quirky and we're all weird. We're all just pretending we're not. Which I love weird and quirky people. They're my favorite kind of people. Just side note there. So yeah, self-love is really important on this journey. And the last point here is to feel more secure and confident in your relationships. Right? I think a lot of us in these groups where we have shame and trauma and we're a minority, we struggle in our relationships because we struggle with our relationship with ourselves, right? We have inner conflict. We have rejection of self, right? How can we have a strong relationship with other if we don't have a strong relationship with self? So I don't do a lot of relationship coaching in my work because I believe that the most important relationship we have is our relationship with ourselves, and then relationships with others just naturally and organically come together when we have a strong relationship with self. Because the reason why we struggle at relationships is because we don't have a relationship with self, right? So this work is really powerful to improve your relationships indirectly by improving your relationship with yourself, okay? All right. Something to focus on. So this is more just an offering. I run an 8-week workshop called Authentic Relating and Empowerment for Highly Sensitive People. This would be great for empaths and it would be great for sensitives. If you're struggling with all of these things, everything that I talked about in this video, you're going to get in this 8-week workshop, okay? So you can find this in the link below. I'm not going to talk about it too much here. I have a whole landing page dedicated to educating you on what this course is about. But yeah, if this is something that you're really wanting to take seriously and you're wanting to go on an 8-week transformative journey with a group of other people that are doing this work, check out the link. It's ARE program, Authentic Relating and Empowerment. Okay. Wrap up time. If you've made it this far in the video, good for you. You likely don't have ADHD. If you've had to pause it, that's okay too. Okay, so I want to hear from you guys now. You can let me know in the comments below. What quality of authentic people do you already possess? Okay, that's the first thing I want to hear from you. What do you already possess out of those 7 qualities? What's your greatest strength out of those 7? Okay. And then the second thing is, what do you need to work on out of those 7 qualities? What's the one that you've identified, right? I want to hear from you on what those are for you. Please drop them in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for tuning into this video on authenticity, and we'll see you next week for another video. Take care. Much love.